In the deep recesses of one's mind, there is a voice, a guiding light through the darkness, a connection to the other side.
You're ready to wake up, you're going to wake up. And if you're not ready, you're going to stay pretending that you're just a poor little me.
A pathway to spiritual that echoes with enlightenment. The voice of spirit.
The voice of spirit.
You are a function of this total galaxy, bounded by the Milky Way, and that furthermore, this galaxy is a function of all other galaxies.
Your journey starts here and now. With your host and connection to spirit, Leo Bonomo.
Hi, and a very, very warm welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you happen to be in the world. You're listening to Leo Bonomo. I've got another wonderful guest, a good friend of mine, Deborah Carey. She's led quite an interesting life and been involved in quite a few different things. And tonight she's going to be talking a little bit about her life and experiences, but she's also going to be talking about a book that she's writing and some of the exciting things that she's doing. So without any further ado, hi Debbie, how are you?
Hello Lee, I'm really well, thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's really, really lovely to have you. You've been sensitive, haven't you, for quite some time?
Yes, I was right from as long as I can remember. I've always been a really I was a very sensitive child and was very connected right from an early age. I mean, some of my earliest memories, I could remember, having out-of-body experiences from as early as 4 and 5 years old.
Wow, and that's fantastic, because a lot of people's memories tend not to go back that far, do they? There's an age of perception, isn't there, where we kind of, I suppose the world just becomes a little more real and we lose our innocence to a degree.
Yeah, no, for me, I've always had this connection all my life where I've always known that there was more to my reality than my physical, everyday world. So, no, it's never left me.
I think that's a fantastic thing. So tell us a little bit about some of the experiences that you had as you were growing up.
Well, I remember coming into this world, and even as a really tiny child, I could remember that this wasn't the first time that I'd ever been here, and I sort of had this insight into life from a really small child, that I knew that my dad and I had connections before in past lives, and from about the age of 4, I was already starting to I would wake up in the morning and be able to leave my body, float around the bedroom and see myself lying on the bed. And that's even now I can remember that as clear as if it had just happened to me. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and again, I think it's wonderful that you have that. I suppose it's a reality check of, this life is a very temporary thing. You're very young, you're here again, but you're kind of very loosely connected to the body. I think it's a wonderful thing to have. Not only those knowings, but also it being reinforced by those experiences, because it's a real, for people that have never had it and then have it, it's a life-changing experience. But I think for those that have had that ability from very young, it certainly reinforces, I think, the spiritual side of life. So what were your next experiences?
Well, I had quite a difficult childhood. I had a really difficult relationship with my father, who was very controlling and quite aggressive, actually. And then when I got my first real awakening, if you like, was when I was about the age of 14. And I remember waking up one morning and having this voice inside my head basically saying to me that nothing could kill me in this lifetime. and that I felt like I was indestructible, actually, that I was powerful beyond anything that I'd ever experienced. So right from an early age, I think that I was understanding there was more to my life, or more to this world, than the physical reality that we live in. Yeah.
And it sounds as though that's a real extension of what we naturally feel when we're young, because we are so inexperienced in life in this world, and we do tend to think, mid-teens, late teens, we're indestructible and we can do anything. But for you, there was, if you like, a real spiritual backing up of that, which that must have been very enlightening and empowering for you.
It was. It gave me a massive sense of freedom. It gave me a massive sense of freedom, and I believe that anything was possible. Anything was possible. That the world that we live in, if to me it felt like I had one foot in one world, one foot in another, but the two were intrinsically woven together. And I think those early years created a foundation that built in me this sense of freedom, that I could explore both worlds equally. And I think I've spent a lot of my life doing that, actually, weaving the two worlds together.
And I know from my experience of you that's something that's exactly that's happened. And I think, there's a wonderful phrase that you've used there, and there is that sense of manifestation, that you can make anything happen. Nothing's off limits, and it's some people find that kind of empowerment generally very late in life. And whilst I've always had a spiritual connection, to me, understanding and using manifestation, and that it actually works, came very late in life for me, because I'm 61 now, and it was probably around early 50s when that realization fell into place. And for me, it's one of those oh my God moments where I thought, I've been looking at life from a certain perspective, which hopefully is more enlightened than most people. And I don't say that from an ego point of view. But then it's suddenly like, I've been living life wrong. I've been doing things wrong. So I think it's fantastic that you've had that from a very, very early age. What was your next experiences if we move forward maybe 5 or 10 years?
Well, I went through a phase. I've got a son, and I had him when I was young, actually. I was only 20 when I had him. And then I went through a phase where, it's a bit strange, actually. I went into a phase of, I didn't want to be like I was anymore. I wanted to be, in exclamation marks, normal. I didn't want the connection that I had. I didn't want to hear the voices. I didn't want to feel. I'm so sensitive, and I've always been so sensitive that when I'm around people, I can basically feel most of the time what they're feeling. And I think a lot of the times it overwhelmed me. And I went for about 10 years where I blocked a lot of my gifts. I didn't want it.
Yeah. Again, I've been through something similar, and I think for people that don't have the gift, or don't have it to that extent, I think they find it very hard to imagine what it's like when you're kind of I suppose your voice in a sense is drowned out. It's like background chatter that you just can't turn off, and it's very off-putting. But it's nice to know that you had that ability and you cut it off. So you gave yourself a rest, really, didn't you?
I did. I gave myself a rest, and for about 10 years, I just wanted to focus on being a mother. I just wanted to focus on being a mother and being with my son and enjoying motherhood. And I did. I did. It was a time in my life, and I think I needed that. I needed to feel grounded, and I needed to feel that I don't know, maybe it was about taking an element of control back into my life where I just wanted to be a mother.
Yeah, and I can imagine that's a very grounding experience. I know, and it's from a completely different perspective, of course, because however much a man may love his children, and whether that's a spiritual connection as well as a physical connection, and all that, it's not the same experience as being a mother and physically giving birth. So it's I know that it's a very grounding thing for you. I think as a man we ground when it's children. I think we ground differently. So although I think a lot of men out there would say, well, yes, you know, it was grounding and this happened and that happened, but it's not the same thing. So when did your life start to take a turn and you get back into the spiritual things?
When I was 30. When I was 30, I had a really traumatic experience. I had a near-death experience. And it was as if life had decided, or spirit had decided, that it was time for me to come back online. And it wasn't an easy awakening. It was a horrific awakening, but it woke me up with such a jolt that I knew from that moment that I was back in the world of energy and vibration. And it came back in full force. I was hearing voices, I was seeing auras, I was drawing psychic drawings, I was dreaming of things that were then happening. It was like I'd had 10 years of very quiet energy.
Silence, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, within 24 hours, my world changed. Yeah,
someone just turned the volume right up, it sounds like, literally, in a sense.
Massive, huge, to the point where I went through a phase where I was quite frightened because I couldn't control it. It came on so fast and so many things all at the same time that it took me a few years to be able to learn to take control back into that energy field and realize that it was a lot of practice, and I had to go and take a lot of classes. I found teachers. I found some amazing people that came into my life that guided me through it and explained to me what was happening to me. It was an awakening, but it wasn't an easy awakening. It was a full on couple of years. Yeah.
It sounds like, and I know it's a bit different for you now, but it sounds like at those periods of first awakening when you were 4, and then shutting off, and then reawakening. It sounds like certainly that part of your life was all or nothing, wasn't it? It was just like no half measures from spirit.
No half measures. And I think that I'm a little bit like that, actually. I think I am a little bit all or nothing. I think that's actually part of my makeup. That when I do things, I tend to go for it. And then if I don't want to do something, then it's not happening. So I think that is part of my personality. My character as well is a little bit like that. So maybe spirit works in a way that, to me, it works with who you are. And I think for me, it's an all or nothing thing. So when it happened, it came on full force on every level.
Yeah, and it's nice because I think a lot of people don't appreciate that. Although we interact with spirit and like attracts like, etc., that parts of our personality which we've brought with us from spirit, and we've said, well, we want this part of a personality and we want this. I don't think people, perhaps up to now, have realised how much your personality affects those awakenings for you in a very direct way, rather than being a small part of the personality. It really feels as though a large part of the personality dictates what you've allowed or spirit have enforced in a way with that awakening. So that's really interesting. And I know that when you were very awakened, you were very drawn to tarot as well, weren't you?
I had a really strange experience. I'd never seen tarot. I'd never had any connection or readings or any involvement. And after the awakening, I begun to draw. I'm very creative, and I'd begun to do a lot of drawings, and some of them seemed very strange to me. And a friend of mine who I shared the drawings with looked at them, and she was the one that said to me, "I think you're drawing pictures of tarot." And I'd never seen tarot cards. Yeah. So she thought it would be a good idea if she bought me my first set. Yeah. And the strangest thing was that intuitively I knew from 0 to 21 what every card was without ever looking at them.
Wow.
So all the major arcana cards, 0 to 21, without ever seeing them. I'd started to draw them. I drew the High Priestess and the Fool were the first two I drew. And then as soon as I had my first set, without even having to learn them, I knew the numbers and what they were representing, which was odd. Yeah.
So do you think that was part of this life experience, that you just had that knowing, or do you feel that was a connection to a past life?
Oh, I think it was a connection to a past life. There was no way that I could know those cards. No way. And it was I didn't even have to think. It was like if somebody said to me 9, it was the Hermit. Or if they said to me 7, it was the Chariot. Or 21 was the World. It's like they're in me. They're in my being. So, yeah, it was an interesting... even for me, it was interesting because I couldn't understand where it was coming from, but I just knew them. So the only thing that I could connect with is that I'd had a past life where I must have been, some sort of reader, or I'd used them in my life, definitely. I knew them. I knew the cards.
And I think that's a comfort as well, isn't it? Because knowing from age 4 that you're coming back again and that you've got stuff to do, and knowing the cards, I think with being loose within your body and projecting, and then just knowing of a past life that you'd had a connection with the cards, I find all that kind of experience very, very comforting. It's grounding in a way, but it's very comforting because I think people like yourself and myself, we see this as a transition, don't we? We're in this life, we've got a few things to do, and so we don't tend to worry about, well, if we're going to pass or what's going to happen. We tend to live very, very freely, don't we? We
don't have the fear.
That's what I was trying to get at, I think.
Yeah, I don't have that fear. I've never had that fear ever. I have fear because we need an element of fear in life. It's good, it's healthy. Otherwise, we wouldn't understand that if you do certain things, you're going to get hurt. So fear is a natural reaction that to an element, to a certain understanding we all need. But I don't have the fear of the unknown, as far as I know that it's a knowing in me. I know that there is more to this existence than just this one tiny life that we have. I know that.
Yeah, and again, that's very enlightening. Just having that. We're going to talk. We'll be coming up to a break in a couple of minutes, and what we're going to be talking about is some of your experiences, because you were connected to Hay House, weren't you, for a number of years?
I was.
Yeah.
And I felt very blessed, actually, that I had those. I was with them for about 4.5 years. And it was a magical time in my life. It was it helped me to connect with people that were the leading lights in the world, you know, at that time, probably about 10 years ago, about philosophy, spirituality, and there was a wave of understanding coming through Hay House that was groundbreaking. And I was on that wave, and it was pretty amazing, actually. Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I can see that would be very blessed. And again, you know, your life has been a path really of sensing and tasting, isn't it? And being, if I say being in the right place at the right time, we're all guided. But you seem to have been very blessed in wonderful experiences like that just being brought to you.
I do. And I think I'm a natural empath as well. So I'm not particularly visual. When I meet people, I don't interact in the world in a particularly visual way. My connection with people is much more of I feel things. I feel everything in my body. So, you know, when I get a feeling about something, whether it's a place or a person or somewhere I should be or someone I should call, it's a feeling, and I've learned to trust that feeling. I've learned to really trust that feeling.
And I think there's a wonderful lesson in that for lots of people, because there is that fear of not wanting to let go of that, isn't it? That there's kind of a comfort in holding on to something that's actually holding us back.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's a strength for me, and it's nothing.
Okay, we're just going to go into a break now, and we'll be right back with Deborah after this.
This is the voice of spirit, your connection to the other side.
To understand something spiritually, you must experience it. And in order to experience it, you have to experience it in your imagination.
Explore with us by calling 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230.
Give us a call now.
Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Everything that now exists was once imagined. Therefore, everything that is going to exist must first be imagined.
Back with your guide to spirit, Leo Bonomo.
Leo Bonomo.
After these brief words from our sponsors.
We interrupt to bring you this.
Would you like to advertise on KCOR Digital Radio Network?
This is what I'm talking about.
At a fraction of the cost of traditional radio advertising, why not?
Tell them the good news.
Whether you need to promote your next book, product, or service, we can customize a package for just about any budget.
Finally, there is hope for the hopeless.
Why limit yourself to a tiny local market when KCOR can brand you to the world?
Here's all you do.
Visit KCORradio.com or contact our sales department by email at saleskcorradio.com.
We want it now!
See the difference with us by letting us work for you.
This ain't reality TV!
The KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Dear John, uncontrolled high blood pressure is serious, and I can quit whenever I want. But when I quit, you quit. Sincerely, your heart.
To get your high blood pressure to a healthy range, visit heart.org/bloodpressure. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
Thursday nights are about to get weird on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Join hosts Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz as they go exploring the bizarre. Jet across the cosmos with two of the most electrifying paranormal researchers in the known universe. Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. Exploring the bizarre takes you deep within the world of the unexplained UFOs, ghosts, lost worlds, cryptozoology. It's time to take back the night with hosts Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz, exploring the bizarre. Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, only on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
This is the world-famous KCOR.
That's the only station I listen to.
Incoming message.
In a digital world infiltrated by government as well as civilian disinformation, a single, powerful, and researched voice speaks through the night.
We're getting a signal.
Join Erica Lukes, the host of UFO Classified, as she interviews some of the hottest, sometimes controversial, but always informative people in the world of ufology and the paranormal.
They knew for sure that it was an alien craft, and our governments around the world have covered it up.
The reason I was taken aboard was because there was no choice. I would have been dead.
UFO Classified, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, every Friday night. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there just waiting to be discovered. But the question is, are you ready for it? UFO Classified, hosted by Erica Lukes, the new voice of the high desert. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Welcome back to the Voice of Spirit, your connection to the other side.
There's no accidents in this universe. We all show up here with a purpose. There's an intelligence that is a part of everything and everyone, and all of us are connected to it.
Connect with us on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Even better, join us live in our chat room at kcorradio.com. To get a free reading during the show, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230.
Give us a call now.
Worldwide callers, use Skype name KCOR Radio. And now, inspirational clairvoyant medium, psychic, and your connection to the spirit, the host of the Voice of Spirit, Leo Bonomo.
Hi, and a very, very warm welcome back. We're talking to a good friend of mine. I was going to say Doreen Virtue. I've written a note. It could be a long night. Deborah Carey. And the reason that we were talking about Doreen Virtue was because we indicated just before the break that you've had, I think, for people that are interested in this thing, an absolutely magical job, because you worked for Hay House, didn't you?
I worked with Hay House, helping them to run all their London events. So when the authors were over and we had big events going on in London, I used to be part of the team that looked after the authors and helped organise all the big London events. So I was pretty blessed, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I could imagine if I'd had that break, I would have just been absolutely immersed in it. I think it would have took me off track to an extent, because I would have thought there's all these people and they're so much better than I am, and just go with it. So that's wonderful. Yeah. And the reason that Doreen Virtue came up was because she had a great influence on you, didn't she?
She did. I always felt, even before I worked for Hay, that one of the reasons I got involved with Hay was because I got introduced to them through a mutual friend. Mm-hmm. And I had read so many of their books that they asked if I'd like to help run their bookshops during the events, because I was so well read. Yes. That they said it would be good, if people wanted advice as to what books, they might be good for where they were in their life. I could advise them, on authors and topics and books. So I was very involved in the book side of things, and I'd also used a lot of Doreen Virtue's angel cards, and I was using them myself, loved them, felt massively connected with her. And then I heard that she was coming to London and that I was going to be working the event. So I was quite super excited, actually. Yeah. And the whole day started off right from the beginning of that day. I remember I had to be up really early, and I woke up in the morning and I looked at my clock and it said 4:44. And 4:44 is a number that says that you're connecting with angels. It's a very significant number, and Doreen Virtue talks about it a lot. So I knew that day something magical was going on. Yeah. And I went into London, we organised the event, and I ended up mic running. So it meant that I was in the auditorium, and that whenever people wanted to speak with her, I had the microphone and I would be running in and out of all the audience, passing the mic around, so people could ask their questions. Yes. And the strange thing was that while I was working, she called me in front of there was probably about 300 people there, and all of a sudden she called my name, and she asked me she said, Deborah, she said, you do know that you're a mermaid, don't you? And the strangest thing is that from when I was a little child, no one knew this except my very close family. I'd always believed that I was a mermaid. And in front of everybody, of all the things that she could have said to me, there was nothing that she could have said to me that was more intuitive. But yeah, she said to me, Deborah, you do know you're a mermaid. And from that moment on, I was like, oh my God, you are just, you are just a true goddess in my life. And then afterwards, people were coming up to me outside and they were like, oh my God, you're the mermaid lady. And I was like, yeah. So it was a pretty magical day for me. The fact that Doreen Virtue had recognised this little mermaid in me, it was like a blessing. I felt like I'd been blessed. It was like, this is it. I've arrived in life. I've been recognised for my truth. And I've always known I was a magical creature, and now it's been confirmed by the one and only Doreen Virtue. So yeah, life was for me in that moment. Life was complete. Yeah, that was it. There was nothing else anyone could ever say to me that made me happier. Yeah, it was wonderful.
And again, it's because skeptics make all kinds of assumptions, don't they? And they write things off. And again, you'd have had, or Doreen would have had more chance of winning the lottery than just coming out with that statement. So
absolutely, she could have said anything to me, and nothing would have been as personal. Nothing. No one knew that I had this connection, and I never spoke about it. I never talked to anyone about it, never. And she was like, instantly in front of everyone, she was like, bang, I've got it. I was like, oh my God, she's an amazing lady. She's truly, there's a few people that I was blessed to meet. I met up with Esther Hicks and listened to her channeling Abraham. It's just they're just leading lights in this world. Leading lights. Yeah.
And you were saying during the break that you met the gentleman that wrote the Celestine Prophecy, because again, that's one of those books that's had a major impact, hasn't it?
It did. And the Celestine Prophecy was a book that was gifted to me when I was really struggling, because I interacted in the world in a very strange way. And I was so sensitive to energy, vibrations, auras. And then I was given that book and I read it, and it was like coming home. I felt like I wasn't alone, that somebody had written a book that was about people that were interacting and sensing life in a more expanded, intuitive way. And it was a real comfort to me, that book. It was like, it was a real comfort. It made me realise that I wasn't alone and that I wasn't crazy, that I was just, maybe I was a little bit ahead of my time. Yeah. Maybe I was a little bit ahead of my time.
I would say so. And I think, again, one of the reasons that the book struck home to many millions of people was that he spoke from a direction of knowing them, that he'd had these experiences and it just resonated. Certainly a book of its time.
That book was groundbreaking. At that time, there was no internet, there was no Google. Books were quite difficult still. You had to know a specific metaphysical bookshop or somewhere where you go and search for things. And a lot of things were being passed around in London at that time. Things were still quite underground. Spirituality at that time was quite, not secret, but it was word of mouth. You got invited to things and you knew people that would invite you to things. And in a way, it was an exciting time. It was a time where people were starting to open up to a new energy field and a new way of understanding our world. And there was a lot of amazing people around at that time as well. It was exciting.
Yeah, and again, I think, something very interesting that you pointed out is there was no internet. This was very much underground, this movement. And to sell so many books on that basis, the impact is absolutely enormous. What other books have profoundly changed or interested you, or authors?
I'd say Louise Hay, because I think her book, You Can Heal Your Life, she was a pioneer. She was the lady that started to make the connection between physical illness and our emotions. Yeah. So she was the one that started to realise that our thoughts and our feelings have an effect, positive and detrimental, on our health. And she started to accumulate all this information around different aspects of the body and the energetic, the way it starts off in our energy field as a dysfunction, as an emotion, before it always manifests into the physical body. And that's always, healing has always been, ever since I was a child, I've always been very sensitive to energy and to people when they're poorly. I could feel when people are poorly that their energy was low. And sometimes by cheering somebody up, by brightening their day, by making people laugh, is a healing. It helps us when we learn, that when we talk about our problems with each other, at times we're affirming and we're feeding the energy of affirming what we don't want. Whereas if we talk about the joy in life, it can raise the vibration and it helps in a healing way. And I've always been able to lighten people's lives. I've always had I've got a sunny disposition. So when I'm around people, even just my nature, I cheer people up. And I think that I learn that can have a very healing effect on people. Yeah.
And it is something I've certainly appreciated and respect being in connection with you. We have got another wonderful connection, haven't we? And we met through an old girlfriend of mine a lovely lady called Lorraine, and she introduced us, and immediately there was a connection there between us, wasn't there? And we both realised that we'd actually spent part of a life together in America, and I think for us being so connected in that way. I mean, it was groundbreaking for us, I think, certainly for me, but I think it was kind of groundbreaking for Lorraine as well, because she, bless her, she felt a little bit sidelined by the interaction that we had. But that was a wonderful way, again, of because Lorraine was talking to you about me and about you to me for a long time. She was very eager to get us to meet, wasn't she?
She was adamant, actually, that we met. She was very to the point where even when she'd mentioned it, you know, she wanted me to put something in the diary immediately. It was like, okay, when can we come round? I was like, I'm pretty laid back, so you know, sometimes you've got to push me to commit to things, and I think she knew on an energetic level. She was the conduit that introduced us both to each other, and both of us knew. I think within minutes of meeting each other that there was I don't know, we just felt really like we'd always known each other. Yeah, we always
it's a magical thing when that kind of thing happens. This connection that you've had, because after you left Hay House and you started to do your own thing, you're into lots of different things. We had Ted Winslow on last week, who's a sound healer. I've been to you for sound healing as well, so I know that's something that you're very connected to. But you started to run workshops, didn't you, for management and corporations. How did you get into that?
I did. I part of my life, I was involved in running a very large business with an ex-partner, and I started to recognise. I'm an observer, so I tend to sit back, and you know, I learn a lot through observing, and I realised that people would come into work on a Monday morning and they were miserable, and there was an element of resentment, and they were not always that happy to be there, and it was Monday mornings. In fact, Mondays was a struggle. A struggle. But Fridays was a joy. It was like they were having a personality bypass by Friday, where they were like, you know, it was like, oh, no worry, we'll do that. And everyone was on it, working as a team. There was a good vibration. There was joy. So I came to a place where I wanted to start to create a philosophy that I called Every Day is Friday. Because I questioned how you could give up aspects of your life just because they were a certain day of the week. So I thought, if we could create a philosophy where every day of the week was Friday, and create a culture that was based on that Friday feeling, then I was going to help people to realise, whether it was a Monday or a Friday, this is still a precious, beautiful gift in your life and not to be wasted. And if we're going to all work together and we've got a 5-day week, then let's look at the culture and start embracing it and realising that maybe we can create something amazing here between us. So that was the beginning. That was the seed for me that created a whole philosophy that I'm still teaching, that I still practice, but it's expanded over 15 years now. And it was the nucleus that set me on a journey of really understanding about people and personal development. And for a lot of people, they finish work on a Friday, and as they start to relax, their energy field relaxes and starts to expand.
Yeah.
And then what happens on a Monday morning? They have to restrict that energy field back into a tiny little space that they perceive is this job that a lot of time they don't want to be doing. So the philosophy was about understanding that we can control our energy field and stay in this place of relaxation and expansion, and that it's a choice. You know, it's a state of mind. It's a choice, and that if we can learn to support and nurture and love each other, whether it's in our job or in our family, we create an expanded energy field that promotes health and joy and relaxation, which is a lot of times where we all want to be. You know, there's a lot of stress in this world, Leo. People are stressed. They're stressed all the time, and part of what I do is help people to understand that you don't need to live your life feeling stressed. There are mechanisms and philosophies and teachings and practices and things that we can do that help us to reclaim our power and live our life from a place of freedom.
Yeah, and I know that you had affected some big corporations in the way they actually handled their management, didn't they? You know, so it's kind of top-down effect of changing companies.
Yeah, because part of the philosophy is that I believe that we've outgrown hierarchy. And a lot of businesses now are structured on an old way of creating an infrastructure within the business that's based around a hierarchical system. And on a personal level, hierarchy is a very difficult system to work within, because you're either looking up all the time as a way of, you know, moving up the ladder. And the further up the ladder you get, even though you think that you're going to be moving up and it's all going to be great, in fact, the further up the ladder you get, the more fear you feel. And then when you're up the top of the ladder, you start getting concerned. It's like, okay, now I've got to sustain it. Now I've got to stay there. Huge pressure.
Yeah.
And it's also very lonely. It's very lonely up the top of the ladder. You start, you know, questioning who you are. And so there's a lot of, I worked a lot with archetypes.
Yes.
And it's another aspect of life, another little sort of phase I went through where I worked a lot with different archetypes. And I created a philosophy where a lot of businesses are moving through different aspects, different archetypal models, ranging from hierarchy to battlefield to classroom. And each aspect of this growth, this learning, helps us to reclaim our power until we get to a place where we're self-managing, where we're empowered, where we're whole as humans, where we can take full responsibility for our life and work with other like-minded people who are also empowered. And then we learn to support each other and nurture each other. And the whole culture changes and becomes a lot more fun and a lot more light. So yeah, there's a lot. I'm 57 now, so over the course of my life, you know, I've got involved with a lot of different aspects of culture that for me, you know, it's about personal development, but the core of it is still about energy and spirituality. Yeah,
absolutely. Again, we've got a couple of minutes to the next break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about another phase of your life now, because you're beginning to write, and of course you have this wonderful experience with Hay House, and I suppose, you know, the workings in the background of how Hay House and similar companies operate. So we're going to be talking about that, because that's something that's been, again, quite new for you, hasn't it? Because you were saying a few days ago that you've tried to write and there's been a block for many years, and now it's just that block's been removed. The time is right. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. Let me just say, there's we're going to talk a little bit about the sound healing that you do. But we'll lead straight into those, and we'll be back, folks, just after this. So if you do want to support or donate to the show, you can go to www.kcorradio.com. You can find the show and you can click the donate button. And if you also want to have an advert, and we can do these things for you, so you can advertise. We're in 105 different countries, and nearly 2 million listeners per month, so it's well worth doing. We're going to a break, and we'll see you after this.
You've been listening to Leo Bonomo, the host of The Voice of Spirit. Live every Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on the show, guests, and host of The Voice of Spirit, or to book a private reading, please visit leo-bonomo.com. That's leo-bonomo.com. Your connection to the other side is just a phone call away. The Voice of Spirit.
It is amazing, is it not?
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
In the deep recesses of one's mind, there is a voice, a guiding light through the darkness, a connection to the other side.
You're ready to wake up, you're going to wake up. And if you're not ready, you're going to stay pretending that you're just poor little me.
A pathway to spiritual that echoes with enlightenment. The Voice of Spirit.
The Voice of Spirit.
You are a function of this total galaxy, bounded by the Milky Way, and that furthermore, this galaxy is a function of all other galaxies.
Your journey starts here and now. With your host and connection to Spirit, Leo Bonomo.
Hi, a very warm welcome back to the third segment. I've got a lovely friend here, Deborah Carey. She's very experienced in different aspects of corporate life, so many spiritual things. So if you do want to talk to Debbie, then it's 702-425-9230. So if you have some questions to ask, then please do. Welcome back, Debbie. We're going to talk about a few different things, but you've had quite a profound experience with angels, haven't you?
I have. Yes, I have. After the awakening I had at about the age of 30, when I was searching and asking, and trying to get a handle on really what was happening to me, I was given a book called Ask My Angels. And it's still at that time in London, and this is going back like 27 years. So we had, I was explaining before, we had no internet and no Google. So it was very much about, people that we knew and connecting up with like-minded people. And a friend of mine gave me this book.
Yeah.
And I'd recently been invited to meet a lady. Her name was Deborah as well. And she was the first person that I ever met. And I went along to listen to her, and she was a channel for Archangel Michael. And there was 12 of us that were invited to this evening. And it was the first time that I'd ever experienced anybody channeling. And the first time I'd ever experienced a real connection with somebody that was channeling angels. And I was blown away, actually. I mean, it was like the messages that were coming through were very visionary and for humanity and so loving, you know, and beautiful. The reading and, you know, what she was saying. And then afterwards, I was given this book, Ask Your Angels. So for the next few weeks, I was constantly going round, because part of the book said that if you wanted to connect with your own angel, all you had to do was ask.
Yeah.
So I was constantly speaking out loud, you know, as if I was talking to myself, asking for the name of my angel. But I was doing it in quite a playful way, because I didn't really believe that that the angels were going to speak to me directly. So this went on for weeks, and I was like, all the time, you know, I was like, okay, angels, give me a name, you know, who can I speak to? I'd really like a name of somebody, you know, of my angel, my guardian angel. And then one afternoon, my son was having extra tuition with a lady after school, and I went to collect him, but I was a little bit early, and I was sat outside the lady's house waiting for Luke, my son, and I was staring. It was raining. And I was in the car on my own. I was quite tired. I've been busy all day. And I was staring out the window, not thinking about anything at all. Nothing. You know, when you're just getting into that. I was daydreaming.
Yeah.
I was just daydreaming and watching the rain and not thinking about anything. And I had the most strangest experience that I started to write in the air with my nose. This sounds really weird, but before I realised what had happened, I spelt out letters with my nose in the air, and it was like a moment where time stood still, and before I realised what had happened, I could see the letters energetically as well in my mind. And I realised that I'd spelt out a name. And I realised that I'd spelt out the name of my angel. And then I was so amazed that I kept saying it out loud over and over and over again. And the spelling the angel gave me was very specific. Very, very specific. And I'll share it with you. The angel gave me the name Augustine, but the spelling was very specific. It was AUG, and then they were very specific. It was ISTIN. And I remember that I wrote this out with my nose in the air, and then I saw the letters in a visualization of this name. And from that moment on, I've always known that my angel is called Augustine, and I've had a personal connection with this angel for nearly 30 years now. But the strangest thing is that years later, when I worked with Hay House, I met Esther Hicks, and she said in one of her talks that when she first connected with Abraham connected with her with nose writing. And it's the most strangest phenomenon. I have never met anybody else that it's happened to. And it apparently is something that comes in a way that if angels want to speak to you, they can come in dreams, they can come in voices, but they can also come in nose writing, where you start spelling out words in the air with your nose. So that's a strange one, even for me.
It is, and I've got to say I've not heard of that before. But again, it doesn't surprise me. But I can see the mechanics of it, because when you're inscribing those letters, you're also concentrating and you're taking it in, can't you? And as you say, it can be very specific. So it's a little bit like carrying out an action, associating an action with a memory or with a piece of information. And I know that there are tricks to learning and remembering things, which I don't really profess to carry out. My memory's terrible. But I was watching a program many years ago about, and this was the man who could remember anything, and people used to give him a whole row of numbers and he'd recount them, and do all kinds of, I suppose, memory tricks. And he talked about associating certain things with other particular things and making up rhymes and mnemonics and all kinds of tricks that would make him remember. And I think it's fascinating that the angels would make you do that, because again, you're concentrating so much on the letter that you're inscribing. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, well, also I'm really dyslexic. So I think that I know that my mind works in quite an unusual way. With letters and everything. So I think that maybe because of my way my brain works with letters and words, that the connection just came through in this, but it was so profound and it was so clear and it was so real. It was so real. And Esther Hicks is the only other person that I've ever come across, that had a similar experience. Strange, isn't it?
It is. It's absolutely fascinating.
Couldn't make it up, could you?
Well, some of this stuff you really can't, because I mean, again, if you try and logicalize it, it's like, oh, no one's going to believe that. But it's one of the fascinating things of what we do. You wanted to talk a little bit about setting goals as well.
Yes, because one of the things in my early life, I went through a phase where I went through a really difficult patch in my life, and I realized that I was constantly running away from things that I didn't like, and it had become a pattern. And then I had an amazing connection where I was introduced to a guy called Brian Main, who is still a very dear friend of mine and now travels around the world teaching about goal setting. And when we first met, it was in the early days where he was still at the beginning of creating the whole goal mapping process that he now teaches. Yeah. But he said something to me that resonated and changed my life, actually. He said that for a lot of people, when they're in a situation that they don't like, they want to run away. But when you learn to set goals, you learn to move towards what you want in life rather than moving away from what you don't want. And in that moment, that was another massively significant paradigm shift for me, where I realized that over the past few years, I've been running away from a lot of things that I didn't like. And I learned that you can't run away from things. What you have to do is be really clear about what you want, and then have the trust and the belief to set your goals and have patience and move towards what you want in life rather than moving away from what you don't want. And that was huge for me. Huge shift. Yeah.
And again, I had a similar thing. It was quite dramatic for me, but I think on a smaller scale than perhaps you had. Because we both believe in manifestation, don't we? We both manifest things.
Totally.
And the kind of it was almost an epiphany in a sense, because I kept thinking about just being able to get through the month. And what occurred to me for some years was I was just about getting through the month. And the turn, which is really, I realise now it's what you're explaining, was not to say get me through the month, but to say that I had money over. And it's such a small thing in a sense, but I realise it's completely connected to what you're saying, because we do focus on those things that are going wrong. I suppose it's a bit like a car coming at you, and you look at it because you think it's coming, it's fast, you're trying to judge your speed, am I going to wait till the last moment and leap left or right, or what am I going to do? And of course the car's getting closer all the time, and I think it's that kind of sense. We focus, don't we, on what's going wrong because we want to fix it, but what we're doing in fact is encouraging it, aren't we? Really, we're supporting that.
Yeah, because we're coming from fear.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the more we come from fear, the more we'll attract more things into our life that will feed the fear. Whereas when you start to set your intention from a place of unlimited possibility, and you're specific about what goals you want, and when in goal setting, one of the motivating factors about achieving your goal is knowing why you want it. And the thing is, the stronger the why, the more that you can build the intention to achieve your goal. And I've learned that when I set goals and I know that I want something, what I ask myself is, why do I want it? And I know that in my heart, I have to have that, the intention has to come from a place of love. Goals have to be fueled from the intention of love, from the heart. And then manifesting is quite easy. Yeah. It's when we block the goals and we block our energy from the natural flow towards what we want, either because we don't feel worthy, we're lacking in self-worth, or we're blocking through fear. Apart from that, if as humans we have a massive energy field, and if we can connect our energy field through intention to the expanded energy field of the consciousness, then nothing is going to stop us achieving what we actually desire, as long as it's from a place of love and not from a place of ego or greed or wanting it to impress other people, or wanting it, to feed something that's lacking in us. If it's feeding something that's lacking us, then we're gonna struggle to manifest. But if it's feeding and coming from a place of love within us, where it's a natural thing, then I think we're really amazing manifestors. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I found out, to my amazement, quite some years ago, I owned quite a few businesses. I owned 3 businesses. They all failed through no fault of my own. I was a goldsmith at one time, and during the 1980s, the gold, it had always been at a level of about $300 an ounce. And then in the 80s, it shot right up over a few months to $900 an ounce. I mean, it was amazing. And if you were holding metal, then you'd made a lot of money. I wasn't, and a lot of people wasn't, and it put a lot of people out of business in Hatton Garden alone. So there were incidents like that I had no control of whatsoever. But there was a pattern of businesses being built up, getting to a particular point, and then the whole thing failing. And I had a reading. You've actually seen Master Chow and Sarah Tyler Waters, and she's been on this show as well. And I was having a reading with him, and he said to me, the thing is that there is a deep-seated fear, or there was a deep-seated fear of success. And it didn't really strike a chord with me, because I'm thinking, well, in a sense, that's self-harm. I work so hard for success. Why am I destroying it? Why am I sabotaging it? But I gradually learned that actually was something that I was doing. So I had that fear of success. So it tallies a lot with what you're saying, really, of wanting and wanting and wanting. But there's a little bit of fear at the back of it that just goes, you know what? Not happening. So for me, that reading in particular was very, very enlightening. But what you've said as well is very, very enlightening to me, because I can see that affecting my life. You know, and we've talked about manifesting on the show before. And one of the things that's been explained really is what you've said, that we can want it, but if there's that fear there, if there's that doubt there at all, it's not going to happen. Of course, if it is coming from a place of ego and we're just feeding the ego, as you've said, it's not going to work. So it's hugely interesting.
And one of the things, I think it was Marianne Williamson, one of her quotes, when she said that for a lot of people, people are not frightened of their darkness, they're frightened of their light. Because, you know, sometimes we learn to tolerate the negativity in our life. We build up a sort of tolerance to living in a place where we're constantly suppressed. Yes. And then the thought of stepping out of that and really stepping into our true potential, our true light, our truth is frightening. It's frightening when we've been suppressing that and we've been playing small for a lot of our life. Success can be as scary as failure.
I agree with you, and I think it goes back to what you said earlier in the show of people getting there, and then there's that pressure, you know, and I suppose the pressure of trying to maintain it is bad enough, trying to go forward is bad enough, but probably worse that you might fail. So it's an interesting scenario.
The other thing is that if you spent a long time, trying to reach a certain place in your life, the journey stimulates you. It's your driving force to reach that place. And then what happens is that you succeed, you reach your goal, and then you don't know what to do. You don't know what to do, and that's why goal setting needs to be done in lots of different aspects of life. You can't just set goals in one area of life. You need to set goals, balanced goals. So you set personal goals, you set business goals, you set health goals. Because what we actually want, we want to feel balanced. If we're always focused on one specific area of our life, even when we achieve that, we're never going to be happy. We're never going to be happy.
I worked with a guy many years ago. Actually, his name was Peter Guy, strangely enough. So I literally did work with a guy. And he planned for about 10 years for his retirement. And my wife then, she worked in a company that used to get mail from all over the world. And one of the things that he was doing was collecting stamps and that. And he'd literally just put them away, and he was going to spend some of his retirement just sorting through this huge bag that he collected from my wife alone. And I thought at the time, you know, being a much younger man, that's a bit odd, it's a bit premature. But realised actually, as you've said, his goal setting, his planning, there was no way that he was going to do what a lot of people do when they retire and think, oh, that's it, my working life's over. You know, as my dad used to say, now I'm for the knacker's yard, you know, I've reached that age. What is there? And I think it's at that point that we can switch off. So I've had a great personal experience of, as I say, Peter Guy, planning his whole thing. So goal setting, I think, is much more important than most people realise. You know, Yeah, it's an amazing thing, and it's great that you've reminded me of that, because as someone in spirits just said to me, well, you know, it's nice to get up in the morning and have something to do. So
the other thing is, though, it's about learning that life is the journey, not the destination. Don't give up your life. Always focused on reaching a certain destination.
Yeah.
Because the joy, the real joy, for me anyway, I'm very creative, so I've always got loads of things on the go at the same time. But what I love is the joy of the creating, rather than always the end result of, even now I'm writing. Yeah. But what I'm doing, I'm embracing the writing. I love the writing, and hopefully at the end of it, you know, I might have something that's sort of okay, you know, as a finished thing.
I think it will be. We'll talk about that, and we're just going to go into a break right now.
This is the voice of spirit, your connection to the other side.
To understand something spiritually, you must experience it. And in order to experience it, you have to experience it in your imagination.
Explore with us by calling 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230.
Give us a call now.
Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Everything that now exists was once imagined. Therefore, everything that is going to exist must first be imagined.
Back with your guide to spirit, Leo Bonomo.
Leo Bonomo.
After these brief words from our sponsors.
One of the planet's most powerful antioxidant products is here for you to enjoy. Chaga Mushroom Tea. This tea has been used as a potent natural health solution for thousands of years. In fact, the Chinese call it King of the Herbs. The health value alone is worth a look, as Chaga Mushroom Tea packs a punch with pure vitality and smooth energy. It's 100% wild-crafted, safe, and effective. Get it now at arcticchaga.com. That's ARCTICCHAGA.com, or call 916-969-2678. That's 916-969-2678. Chaga Mushroom Tea. Chaga Mushroom Tea. Order your supply today.
That's
good.
Turn your radio up.
I love it. All the music I want to hear.
This is my station.
Music is a bridge between the material and the spiritual. My name is Harvey Lauer, and I'm 82. As a blind person, you have to be aware that nobody can tell you what you can or can't do. You really have to try things. My folks got me a little radio in 1940, and that was the best Christmas present I ever got. When I was 11 years old is when I started to play music, play the piano, and then the accordion, and then the cello. My wife, who was also blind, was a good cook. When she died, that's when I started Meals on Wheels. America, let's do lunch.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific. Jump onto the Celestial Highway and travel at the speed of light. Into hyperspace. Hyperspace. Hosted by Solaris Blue Raven. She navigates you through the cosmic tides of mysticism into the world of covert technology, UFOs, mystical sciences, and the world of unforeseen forces.
You get to really sort of enjoy a bizarre ride.
Listen live, Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific.
For Hyperspace.
The one show that blows the whistle off our government black ops projects. Hyperspace. Hosted by Solaris Blue Raven.
Solaris Blue Raven.
Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Want to take a ride?
to the voice of spirit, your connection to the other side.
There's no accidents in this universe. We all show up here with a purpose. There's an intelligence that is a part of everything and everyone, and all of us are connected to it.
Connect with us on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Even better, join us live in our chat room at kcorradio.com. To get a free reading during the show, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230.
Give us a call now.
Worldwide callers, use Skype name KCOR Radio. And now, inspirational clairvoyant medium, psychic, and your connection to the spirit, the host of the Voice of Spirit, Leo Bonomo.
Hi, welcome back to the last segment. We're talking to Deborah Kerry, a good friend, lovely friend of mine. And we've been talking about lots of things, including goal setting, past life experiences and connections and things. And one thing that Debbie is now doing after trying to start from quite a few times, there's always been a blockage at the writing. She could only ever get to a certain point in life. And Debbie will correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was about the age of 7, something like that. But now that blockage has been removed. And so Debbie is starting to write a lot. And I've no doubt that it will get published at the end. But tell us a bit about that, Deborah. Debbie.
Well, yes, Leo, I have, because I've always loved books ever since I was a child, and I've been involved with publishing companies, and books have always been a huge thing. And writing is always, even though I'm dyslexic, I've always written in a way to channel my thoughts as a way. It's been very, a release for me. So whenever I'm going through anything in my life where I need to find some clarity, I would write. And at times I've done a lot of, writing where I think that information has come through as well, channeled information. So it's always been part of my life. And I have tried over the last 20 years, numerous times, to write something, to write something a bit more organized, rather than just writing for the enjoyment of writing. And I've never been able to, it's always blocked. Something's always blocked me. But this time, for the first time ever, I'm writing and it's flowing. And I'm writing about all my life. That's what I said. I've had one foot in one world and one foot in another. And the two have always woven together. Mm-hmm. And what I'm writing about is all of the experiences that I've had and how they've created a very... There's been a lot of synchronicity and a lot of synergy that have led me to where I am now. And what I'm trying to do now is bring all that information, all that wisdom, all that experience, all that learning into a book that I want to share. Yeah.
Because I think we were talking, weren't we, and about the book and the writing that you're going through, because a lot of it seems to be certainly inspired by spirit. But we talked about if you had managed to, for whatever reason, 10, 15, 20 years ago, get this together, what's happened during that time is that you've got more experienced in life. The perception of what happened and how it was dealt with has changed. So I do think there's obviously a right time for this to happen, and it certainly is now. But you've got a different perspective on it. So do you think that that's one of the reasons that it's been held up, that you just needed a bit more information through experience?
Definitely. And I've had a very blessed life, and I've done a lot of traveling. And I've seen, lots of amazing places in the world, and I've connected with some beautiful souls, really beautiful souls. And I've travelled a lot in Asia, and a few years ago, 2 years ago, I was on a trip. I've been to India many times, but this a couple of years ago, I had another really significant experience while I was there. And I think one of the reasons that I haven't been able to write, you're right, was because there was a lot of, I still had to live things before I'd got to a place where I could reflect enough on the big picture to be able to share the real message that I felt is coming through in this book. And 2 years ago, I was in India and I had another really profound experience. I was on a deserted beach in the middle of nowhere on my own. I was traveling by myself, and I experienced a energy wave pass through my body, like it came in off the sea. It was, I can't even actually put it in, there's no words that can describe what this was like. It was beyond words. But all I knew, something had happened to me. Something major had happened to me. And the wave that went through my body, the only thing I can share with you now is that since that happened to me in the last 2 years, information, it's like it woke up information. Now, whether that information was encoded in me or whether it came in the wave, I don't know. But in the last 2 years, I've been having massive insights that I'd started to document. And as I'm writing at the moment, more and more of this information that I sort of connect back to that wave is coming through me. And a lot of the information applies to the shift we're going through on the planet at the moment, the raising of the vibration on the planet, the way we're starting to understand our energy field a lot more. And for me, on a personal level, it's awakened something in me that has made me connect to, in all of us, there's a duality, a light and dark, a shadow and a light. There's also a masculine and a feminine energy in all of us, a masculine energy and a feminine energy. And as I'm writing at the moment, there's a lot of information that's coming through about how we are learning or are going to be experiencing more of understanding how we balance this masculine feminine energy within us. It's hard for me to explain at the moment because it's still in a really early stages of development. But I think we're going to be hearing more and more about this understanding of balancing the masculine feminine energy within us, on the planet, in the way we live, in relationships. Yeah, this is what I'm feeling. The trend is moving towards this balance. It's bringing into harmony of the masculine feminine energy.
Yeah, and I think it's something that's very much needed, because if you're looking, I don't like to get too political on any of the shows, but if you're looking at Trump and it's very aggressive, it's posturing, it's like, as he said himself, I've got the bigger button, whatever nukes you've got, we've got bigger ones. It's a very sort of masculine and aggressive posturing. And whilst I think ultimately some good will come out of it, and that's not to say that I think Donald Trump is correct, but I think with what he's stirring up, I think other leaders in the world will have to say, look, the old way of just you do what we say and we're going to bomb you, that is not going to work. That is not going to happen anymore. So I think it's good that he's come along. I think it's good that this is the time, because I think it will change an awful lot of things. And if we just get to talk and understand, which is something that the feminine energy is very good with, isn't it? It's not compliant in the sense of giving up. It's just more compliant in let's look at it a different way. So I think what you've said is very important in a political stage, but also from the point of view of, the old caveman attitude, if it doesn't work, hit it with a club. Which is kind of Trump sort of, the more feminine think of, if it's not working, let's look at it, let's see what it is first of all before we demolish it. So I think it's a good thing.
And I think one of the main differences between the masculine and feminine energy is that the masculine energy will want to fix things. The feminine energy likes to create. And I think it's a very, very different concept between fixing things, because if you're fixing something, then you're looking at something as if it's broken. Whereas if you're creating something, nothing's broken. You're just creating something new, which is a lot more gentle, but it's still powerful. I mean, the three things that have pushing me, if you like, to write is that my journey is around three aspects of my life. The first one is about learning about self-love. The second one is about learning to live without judgment for myself and others. And the third one is learning to take full responsibility for who I am as a woman. Completely. And I think that this whole aspect of the masculine feminine is learning to accept that we have to learn to love ourselves before we can learn to love each other. And we can't look outside of ourselves for the answers. That the answers are going to come from taking full responsibility for who we are and for the impact that we're having on life and on this planet. And this masculine framework that we've created on this planet, it doesn't work. We're out of balance. We're destroying our world. We're out of balance with it. We cannot continue on the journey and on the path that we're on. Something has to come. We can't fix it because it's beyond fixing. But what we can learn is to start to create something new. And the first step to creating something new is to take full responsibility for who we are as an individual. And if each of us accepts responsibility for who we are as individuals, then we're going to start to create a more beautiful world.
I agree with everything that you've said. And whilst you were talking there, I'm not sure who I've got with me. There's a gentleman, but I could hear Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror playing. And it's exactly really what you're talking about. If we want to change the world, we've got to start with us.
Looking in the mirror.
That's it. And that's the premise of the song, isn't it? So that was quite nice that was playing. And I think as this movement of ours goes forward, as more and more people wake up, we can look at ourselves and appreciate that, yes, we're not perfect, but we wouldn't be here if we were. Accept ourselves and see, as you've said, what we can create, because what we've got at the moment is so far broken. But it's still that mentality of, well, if I hit it with a club, perhaps it will start working. So we've got this flawed image of we can, if we hit it hard enough, it's going to work. And it's nice, because there's a direct correlation, I think, of what you've saying about the female and creating. Because if you think of the wonderful inventions that have been created, that have helped life, that have been of a benefit, and they solve problems, that they come out because of a need, and there's another way, something different, in which we can solve that problem and fix what's there. I think that this way of thinking and this new wave, literally, that's come through of let's look at ourselves, let's accept ourselves. It's no good hitting it with something. Let's create a new solution to the problem. I think we're gradually getting there. I still think it's a few decades away, but I think the change in attitude and thinking of create. We can't fix what's wrong. Just create something better. I think it's a very, very valid thing.
Yeah, me too. And I think that one of the dynamics that has really pushed me. I've always been pioneering in my thinking all my life. I've always been wanting to step on new ground. I've always wanted to tread my own path. I've always wanted to lead from the front. I don't know, it's in my nature. Yeah. And one of the aspects of life that I've come across over and over again is that, especially in the corporate world, it's very much a blame culture. Everybody's blaming everyone for everything. Nobody actually wants to take any responsibility. But the truth of it is, at the moment on this planet, the only person that is responsible for everything that goes on in each of our individual lives is us. We are creating our own life. Fact. You can blame whoever you want for everything that's going wrong, but at the end of the day, the truth is we are creating our own lives. We are fully responsible for everything we create. And if people cannot accept that and not judge themselves for what they've created in the past, whether it's good or bad, there's no judgment. There is no good or bad. There's just life. And if we move away from the judgment and we start accepting responsibility on an individual level, yes, I agree with you, Leo. I think things are moving. And I think over the next 20, 30, 40 years, hopefully we're heading in the right direction. But if we can all accept responsibility for who we are, what we're going to do, we're going to amplify, and we're going to exceed our expectation a lot easier. I don't think it's going to be quicker. I think it's going to be easier.
I think so, because there are occasions when people say, look, let's get as many people in the world together, and this particular time, whatever zone people are in, we're all going to have a minute's silence, and we're all going to pray for peace, or we're all going to pray for whatever it might be. And the effect of that is actually quite astounding. It brings a lot of light into the world. Yeah. And I think as people get to realise that it is something real, it does work. More people are being converted every day. Not necessarily to spiritualism, but understanding there is an energy that we can work with. We're so much more open to and aware of energy now. You go back years and people talked about this in a different way, talked about the world in a different way. There are new words which have crept into the language, and so many people understand. I even hear it on the street. People say, oh, that's got a nice energy. You'd never have heard of that 20 years ago. So the mindset, I think, is there for the change, and people are seeing that change. And I think if we can make it fashionable in a way of saying, right, well, if we introduce these words and they become acceptable, words aren't just words. They have a lot of power. And hating to bring Christianity into this, but in the Bible it says first there was the Word. And I think if we change our vocabulary to match what we all are feeling and sensing, this new word energy, we're seeing it through different eyes now. I know this change has already started, but as you've said, we can accelerate it, and it'll be a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that part of my purpose, when I look at my life and everything I've been through, consciousness, even if you're not religious or spiritual, consciousness is real. There is energy, consciousness. It's a life force, and it's real. It's real. 100%. It's real. I mean, there's different, and I agree with you. Language is you have to be very careful with language and choose your language very, very carefully. And words do have an impact. But the vibration, the energy, the consciousnness, whatever whatever we want to call it, whatever label we want to put on it, it's real. And it's part of it. We're not separate from that. We are the energy. Yeah. And if we allow that energy to flow through us, but the energy impacts us when it's connected to the love. That's what super boosts everything. If we can let go of the fear and allow ourselves to connect to the love and live our lives, because that the hardest people that we judge are ourselves.
Yes.
We beat ourselves up day in, day out. Not good enough, not this, not that, lacking, all of it. We beat ourselves up all the time. If we stopped the judgment and just switch, if we just did one tiny thing, stop judging ourselves, accepted that we're beautiful, loving souls, and started to live our life without the judgment, coming from this place of love, our planet could change like that.
It could change very quick, yes. And again, I think it harks back to something that you said before, and perhaps we can discuss it in another interview at another time. It's that fear of letting go, isn't it? It might be destructive, but it's familiar, and we cling on to it, don't we?
Yeah, I call it the comfort dragon. We cling on to the comfort dragon. Not good for us, but we like the feeling, even if it's trapped us in a world where we're literally drowning. That comfort that we hold on to is so rigid that we don't want to let it go. And a lot of people confuse letting go with giving up. It's like, no, I can't give up. I can't give up. It's not giving up. It's surrendering to something greater than who we are. And as soon as we let it go, everything just falls into place. We're not in control. We're co-creating. We're not in control. We're co-creating every day with an energy field that we are part of. We're not separate from it. We are the energy field. We are the energy field. And as soon as we accept that, we let go of the ego, life is sweet.
Absolutely, and I know that we've both proved this to ourselves, haven't we? And sometimes you get to a position where you have to let go, because I think sometimes spirit get fed up and they just think, right, it's make or break now, and we put ourselves through the mill. But whichever way we kind of arrive at it, letting go is a wonderful, wonderful thing. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you. Very interesting. And I know we'll do some other interviews. Someone's just said shortly. I'm sure we will. But it's been a great pleasure talking to you. And we're going to leave the show now. We'll be back right next week.
You've been listening to Leo Bonomo. The host of The Voice of Spirit. Live every Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on the show, guests, and host of The Voice of Spirit, or to book a private reading, please visit leo-bonomo.com. That's leo-bonomo.com. Your connection to the other side is just a phone call away. The Voice of Spirit.
It is amazing, is it not?
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.